We've been teaching that so-called Negroes, so-called Hispanics, and so-called Native Indians are the Lord's chosen people, according to the Bible, according to these scriptures. We are the real Jews that the Bible speaks of, despite what the world believes. We've been teaching this truth since 1969 under Commander General Yana. Still going strong. So today's our history class. Every Monday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. We have history, so definitely come through. We tie it into the scriptures. And it's good to know some of this history to be able to combat Satan's devices. More importantly, we got Christmas coming up. We got Hanukkah coming up, December 20th, 7 p.m. Give me a call if you plan on attending. Number 617-749-7843. Officer Isaiah Yahala, 617-749-7843. I will be heading the service for Hanukkah. Give me a call and we can make arrangements if you want to come and keep up the Lord's traditions. Okay. Questions online, questions in class. Questions online first. No questions online, sir. Questions in class? No questions in class? All right. Okay, so we all know Christmas is coming up. And I know that, a lot of y'all got, you and your ribs, or you and your woman, if you don't know what a rib is. I know y'all got matching sweaters, matching Christmas sweaters. You're going to ugly sweater parties. There'll be a lot of reveling going on, a lot of drunkenness, a lot of adultery going on. Despite all that, when it concerning Israel, concerning so-called Negroes, so-called Hispanics, so-called Native Indians, despite all that, we know our people are committing evil in the sight of the Lord. And we have to understand that, we have to understand that the pressure that comes about during this time of year. Right after Thanksgiving, right, is Black Friday. But as soon as Thanksgiving, as soon as that's knocked out the way, the spirit of Christmas starts to come on our brothers and sisters. And we start to prepare. We start to, we work on this idea of showing love. And in actuality, it's false love. You know what I mean? It's not real love. It's a spirit that's on you that's essentially the worship of another deity or another god. It's not the worship of the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's the worship of another God. And time and time, our people have been worshiping idols. And this is nothing new. This is something that's as old as Babylon. And so we'll kind of get the history on that. Then, it follows up with, the Greco-Roman Empire when it comes to Saturnalia, which is the worship of the sun god, or Saturn, as they would call it. Another term would be Sol Invictus. See, the thing about Christianity is the worship of the sun. They worship the sun god. They worship Baal. And so we'll go to the root of it with Nimrod. You have any sources on Nimrod? Or do you have the two Babylons?
About both, sir.
Give me two Babylons. Start at page 96.
Slock, can y'all bear with me? Any particular part on page 96?
Yeah, let me see if I could. What was the source that you went to?
When I just searched up the title, The Two Babylons, and a PDF source came up.
Okay, so what's the name of the site?
It's not a site, it's just the PDF.
Just says PDF.
Yeah, it was just the PDF file. They didn't sort the site for it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they just said a PDF, The Two Babylons. I clicked it.
All right, you know, a lot of pressure. Listen, when you're a child or a kid in this truth, there's a lot of pressure that's going to discourage you, that's going to take away your courage. And Christmas is probably the number one holiday that's going to discourage a lot of brothers in this truth. Because, you know what I'm saying? You know, brothers that just first coming in, you know, they haven't had enough gray hairs. They haven't had enough winters or seasons in the truth to be able to withstand the wiles of the devil. And so, you know, why are these classes important? These classes are important because it's to help you be grounded in this truth. It's to help you from not withering away in this truth. Why is camp important? Camp is what's going to build your courage. Camp is what's going to build your faith. Meaning the more work that you get, the more faith that you'll have. You see what I'm saying? And you know what I mean by that? The more work that you get, the more faith that you have. Because faith is what?
Faith is works.
Faith is works. So the more work you get, the more faith that you're going to have. But let's go to page, let me see if I can find page 96. Good night. Okay, so we got the rosary and the lamp and the wax candles. Let me go to here real quick. See if I can find it. Okay, so go to Modern Babylon. That section. You know how to find it? Hit Control F, right?
Look up Modern Babylon.
Hit Control F and then type in Nimrod.
Nimrod?
Yeah.
That joint brought me all the way to the top.
Hold on, give me a second. Let me see if I can find it, all right? I want to make sure I got the right thing. So let me just no. See if I can find it. Salakia. Let's see if I can find it. Go to Salakia, bear with me. There's a couple of okay, so let me find it. Salakia, bear with me, y'all. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, so type in Saturnalia in that.
In the same PDF?
Yeah.
comes up 7 times.
Let me tell you something, right? Go to the first one.
All right.
Let me tell you something, right? Your brother, your forefathers, during 70 A.D. is when the Romans sacked Israel under General. What's the general's name, the Roman general that sacked Israel?
General Vespasian.
Vespasian and his son, right? And so they had sacked Israel at that time. And one thing you got to understand about Christ is that at the time, those that were serving Christ at the time, they were calling them Christians at the time, and it was more of a derogatory approach of when they were calling them Christians, basically the ones that were serving Christ. And in Matthew 24, Christ had prophesied that Jerusalem would be destroyed. And the prophecy came true in 70 AD when the Romans came and they sacked Jerusalem. And so through research, you'll come to find out that many had fled into the mountains as Christ prophesied in Matthew 24. And the mountains would be more towards Africa, where they could actually blend in among those people. And many were taken into captivity. And there were those that wouldn't denounce Christ and wouldn't denounce the Most High, and got caught up in the Colosseums or in the games. And we got to keep in mind that a lot of times during this feast day or this feast festival, Saturnalia, a lot of our brothers and sisters that were serving Christ at that time were thrown into the lion's den, were going up against, it was sort of like an amphitheater for gladiators. And so we're going to read on this and watch and observe the savagery that was going on during that time, and how the Romans had a thirst for blood. And more specifically on this day, many brothers and sisters that did not denounce Christ or the Most High, those brothers and sisters became martyrs and died for the truth. And so when the Romans started to see that these brothers would not, be discouraged or leave this faith, they started to realize that there got to be something with the Most High. There got to be something about who they're worshiping that's causing them to be put to death when they could easily attain mercy. But because a lot of those brothers did have courage, because a lot of those brothers did have faith, they did become martyrs for the truth. So what we got to understand is that this time of year, there's going to be a lot of brothers and sisters, more particularly brothers and sisters that come to the truth, newly in the truth, that are going to be discouraged. And there's a lot of pressure when it comes to Christmas time. Your mother, your girlfriend, your wife, your family, they're going to look at you like you're in a cult, because you don't want to celebrate a holiday that is that goes against what the ordinances that the Most High put in place. But let's read that real quick, the first one.
Start when?
Where it says they were practiced also. The first one. Just type in Saturn now.
In the PDF, right?
Yeah, in the PDF.
The PDF of the two Babylons.
Yes.
All right. The first one I have is actually I.E. only Jehovah. Oh, I see. That's not the beginning. Okay. You want to start at the beginning of that paragraph?
Where it says they were practiced. Also in the most savage form. Keep in mind, the Romans are the ones that killed Christ. You know what I mean? And basically, you're celebrating a Roman holiday. found it?
Slavic. So what I got is this. That's the first word for Saturnalia in this PDF. I.e. only Jehovah.
No, type in Saturnal. Try that.
Huh?
Saturnal. Don't even put the IA. The first thing that pops up. See it?
Still the same thing. Macrobi Saturnalia.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Go up, Salaki, go up to number 2.
Number 2.
Hold on, Salaki, let me see.
Second source, which is
Number 2. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, go to Salaki, let me find it real quick. Yeah, go to number 5. Read that.
Okay. Where you will observe 2 things. Or start from the beginning of that.
Yeah, they were practiced. Try that.
They were practiced also in the most savage form of gladiatorial shows in which Roman people...
In which who?
Roman people.
In which the Roman people, go ahead.
With all their boasted civilization, so much delighted...
Go ahead.
The miserable men who were doomed to engage in these bloody exhibitions did not do so generally of their own free will.
Now, keep in mind around this time, the games were very important. The games is what kept Rome together. You know what I'm saying? And certain emperors knew that if we can conduct these gladiatorial shows, it'll keep the people's mind away from the political affairs that's going on. It'll keep their minds away from the social affairs that are going on, which is why sports plays a big factor in, the soldiers that could potentially be in the UPK that are more consumed with the games, that are more consumed, their mind is more consumed on things that are vain compared to things that really matter. You know what I'm saying? And in the men in the UPK, we focus on the things that matter in regards to the salvation of our people. You know what I'm saying? And the first thing we got to fight is it's really a battle between the rich and the poor, right? The rich of Israel and the poor of Israel, right? And so we're trying to establish a righteous leadership. And so our brothers and sisters in the world, I remember a time in the world where, niggas was burning, smoking, doing the things that, worldly men do. And we would just sit there all day and just watch SportsCenter. You know what I'm saying? Or play, video games, play, Madden or NBA 2K or whatever. And everything we were doing was just in vain. There was no purpose to it, you know what I mean? The only reason an assembly of brothers like that come together is through drugs. It's through lust, to satisfy our lust. And so these games were satisfying the Romans and their lust for blood and their desire for bloodshed. And those that were in those games, mainly a lot of those people were Israelites. And like I explained, when the Romans had sacked Jerusalem, a lot of those people got put into captivity under the Romans, and a lot of our people were in the games. But we're gonna read on. Keep reading.
But yet, the principle on which these shows were conducted was the very same as that which influenced the priest of Baal.
Let me tell you something. Your Christian pastors, your black Christian pastors, your Hispanic Christian pastors are the priest of Baal. That's who they serve. You know what I'm saying? Give me, it's an interesting thing you brought that up. Give me, Rock. Go to, give me Mark Shlaki. Let me get 2 Corinthians 11 and 14. You know what I'm saying?
2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 14. And no marvel, for Satan himself transformed himself into an angel. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light.
Now, this is not talking about Satan, the angel, the spirit. But when he says he transformed himself into an angel of light, these are your Christian pastors. These are your T.D. Jakes, your Creflo Dollars, that have transformed themselves into an angel of light. In actuality, they're serving Satan. They're serving our so-called oppressor. You know what I'm saying? And they've been bought out. And so now what's going on is what it says here, right? It says that the very same that influenced the priest of Baal, right? Now, our modern day priest of Baal are our Christian leaders, are those black leaders that are in it for lucre's sake, that are in it for money. But go ahead.
Oh, you want me to continue?
No, this one. We keep them.
Therefore,
no, go ahead. Give me number 15.
Therefore, it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness.
And that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? They've transformed into themselves into ministers of righteousness, when in actuality, they're ministers of unrighteousness. They're the priests of Baal. And it's the reason why, Christians worship Baal. And there's a reason why they go to church on Sunday. They worship the sun god. And it's come in many forms and under many titles. Saturn is one of them, and Saturnalia was a huge event in Rome, just like Christmas is a huge ordeal in America today. But go ahead.
Whose end shall be according to their works.
Let's get back over here to the other one.
Count out of one count. They were celebrated as propitiatory sacrifices.
Propitiatory. Yeah, you're right.
Propitiatory sacrifices.
Let's look up propitiatory. I want to make sure before I even explain. Okay, the root word is propitiate.
What's the root word again, sir?
Propitiate. It's basically another word to appease. It's like someone that's trying to appease their God. You know what I mean? And what were the heathens doing at that time? Or not just the heathens, but the Israelites that went against the Most High and started doing sacrifice. What they were doing was they were trying to appease to a certain God. You know what I'm saying? During the time of Saturnalia, there were human sacrifices because those human sacrifices was to appease to the god of agriculture. Agriculture played a big role during the time of Saturnalia because it was the worship of the winter solstice. It was the worship of a god that could take away the what they would call bad karma of winter, and how winter. A lot of people keep in mind during those times, winter was very famished. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people suffered during the winter, and so they would pray to these gods so that the sun would return, so that their crops would grow. You know what I mean? Now go back to this. So the propitiatory sacrifices was a sacrifice that would appease to the god of Saturnalia, which is which would be Saturn, or the sun god. And in other societies, it would be Odin, or you know what I'm saying, or it would be Nimrod. You know what I mean? But go ahead.
Count out of one count. with their blood. Salaki. From Fuss, we learned that gladiatorial shows were sacred. To Saturn.
To who?
To Saturn.
To Saturn, which is the god that the Romans served, right? Gladiator shows were sacred. So this influenced the priest of Baals, right? And these gladiator shows were sacred. Go ahead.
And in Ausonius, we read that the amphitheater claims its gladiators for itself. When at the end of Justus Lipsius...
No, wait, you missed the spot. Go ahead.
Oh, Salapia. When at the end of December they propitiate with their blood the sickle-bearing Son of Heaven.
So the sickle-bearing, let me get that real quick.
Those are two words combined. We know what a sickle is.
We know what a sickle is.
Yeah, bearing, most likely the holder of a sickle.
All right, I'm not going to comment on this because I want to know exactly what they mean by the sickle-bearing Son of Heaven. So basically, you know, what I was trying to explain is that Israelites at that time were standing strong for the Lord and they were dying, and so what had happened, what ended up happening is that it started to topple Rome to the point where now they were looking at us like these are some bad brothers and sisters right here that are getting eaten by lions and still won't denounce their God. And so we started to get influence in Rome. And so as we started to get influence in Rome, then a Jake by the name of Constantine came into play, right? And when he came into play, he started to compromise and allow other people to bring their gods into Christianity.
It's not in the Merriam-Webster. Okay. When I look up pictures of sickle bearing, it shows a bush cricket.
Say it again?
It shows a cricket when I look up pictures of sickle bearing.
No, you don't gotta look it up. Just keep reading because I don't want to comment on what they meant by sickle bearing, the Son of Heaven. I don't have a.
Good.
Go ahead.
On this passage, Justus Lipsius, who quotes it, does comment, where you will observe two things, both that the gladiators fought on in Saturnalia.
So what did they do during the time of Saturnalia?
The gladiators fought.
The gladiators fought during that time. Our brothers and sisters died for this so-called Christmas that you celebrate today. You know what I'm saying? They were martyrs for this truth during this time. You know what I'm saying? Let me tell you something. When you think about, when someone says white Christmas, what do you think about, Rob?
Snow and white people. I mean, Slocky, our enemies.
Our enemies. You know what I'm saying? There is no white Christmas for black people. You know why? Because after Christmas, guess what? You and your woman gonna break up. Guess what your woman is looking for during the time of Christmas? She's looking for love, right? That's what she's looking for. She's looking for love. And guess what's going on? You're not giving her that love during the time of Christmas. But guess who is giving her that love? Jerome. Her secret Santa at work. You know what I mean? Her secret Santa at work is giving her that love while you're not giving her that love. Jerome is dropping off flowers to your woman at work, chocolates, to whatever secret Santa gifts. And let me tell you something, those company parties that people be going to, it's just one big orgy. That's what's going on. It's one big orgy that's going on during those Christmas parties, where people are getting drunk, they're reveling, and as they're getting drunk and they're reveling, guess who's hooking up? Guess who's committing adultery? Your woman. But go ahead.
Salaki, on the gladiatorial part, to modernize it, who do they consider to be modern day gladiators?
Boxers, football players
All those sports has an event
on Christmas.
On Christmas.
Christmas Day. And this is something that's been going on for, since Christ. You know what I mean? This has been going on. And it goes to show that history is repeating itself. You know what I mean? But go ahead.
Con out of one con. Both that the gladiators fought on the Saturnalia, and that they did so for the purpose of appeasing and propitiating Saturn.
Listen, every false deity, you know what they require? Blood. Let me tell you something. On a spiritual sense, the ministers of righteousness, your black preachers, your Hispanic preachers, guess what they're doing? They're sacrificing you to who? Baal. That's what they're doing. Now, what kind of sacrifice is this? How do you explain that sacrifice? Think about it.
How do who explain that sacrifice?
How would you explain the priest of Baal today, your TD Jakes, your Creflo Dollars? You know what I mean? How would you explain them sacrificing you to Baal?
Okay, so to modernize it.
Modernize it. Please
Okay,
do.
what they are doing is they are telling you that the laws of God are done away with.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in that process, you will participate in whatever feels right to you, whatever
Alright.
makes you feel good,
That's right.
whatever your lust desires.
That's
And
right.
In that process, you end up worshiping and propitiating another God.
Now, give me, that's perfect. Give me the wages of sin.
Count out of one kind.
You know why I'm bringing this up? Because there's a cost to your conduct. You know what I'm saying? There's a cost to your actions. Meaning, as you're being the worker of what? Finish my sentence.
The worker of iniquity.
As you're being a worker of iniquity, right? You got to get paid for that, right?
Huh.
A worker gets paid, right? So now you got to get paid as a worker of iniquity, right? Just like you get a reward as a what? Worker of what? Righteousness, right?
Huh.
Well, let's find out what happens when the law is done away with.
Romans chapter 6.
Give me that real quick.
Oh, Salakia. Romans chapter 6, verse 23.
Go ahead.
For the wages of sin is death.
For the wages of sin is what?
Death.
Let me tell you something. If you want to be a worker of iniquity, guess what the wages of that is? Guess what the wages of not keeping the law is? Guess what the wages of celebrating Christmas? What is it?
Death.
And here's why I say that, right? See this little girl right here? Here's why Christmas can be so evil. Because you're teaching that child